Well, Royce, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me. It's good to be here.
Quite literally, a little different this time. Previous meetings, of course, were on Zoom. Now we find ourselves in my dining room with a couple of drinks for me and you and your water. Um, the previous episodes we released, I put on the Between the Levees podcast. Um, and I justified it in my head at the time because you had had experience in New Orleans Harbor. I think you were actually in Lake Charles, well outside, I think, of any levees.
No, technically they're levees. Not as big as the ones in New Orleans.
Sure. Um, this episode, I think I'm going to release on the Merchant Mariner because I know, of course, in your new responsibilities, you're kind of coast to coast and all over the place. So we'll get into all of that. But our last, or a point of our last talks that we never really got back into, I think you didn't talk much about it on the show because it was still kind of an idea, but that entrepreneurial spirit you found to create a training program for mariners. We never really got into it, and then of course we kind of fell out of touch for a while, and all of a sudden you're doing something totally different.
Totally different.
So,
Similar, same but
right.
different, right?
So let's hear about it.
All right. So yeah, initially, was 3 years ago, I guess it was. I went and got a business license, started an LLC website, put it all out there. The company is recognized as Applied Steering and Dynamics, which the initials are ASD, which are the industry initials for azimuthal stern drive or Z drive tugboats. And the thought process was to be sort of a consultant, not so much for the tugboat companies, but hopefully with ship pilots to give them some firsthand perspective and understanding of what the capability of the newer generation of Z drive tugs, what their capabilities are, and maybe more importantly, their limitations with some of these newer designs. And shortly after that launched, I was given an opportunity with Moran, which is who I work for, Moran Towing, to come ashore as a training specialist for our mariners. So the new job title is training specialist, uh, mariner training specialist for
Ship
ship
dock.
dock.
Okay,
Okay.
we'll get into that some more uh, as we get through the story. But fill me in, I guess, on your transition from the boats to shoreside, how that process went, uh, what you've been surprised by maybe, but were your coworkers out there in Lake Charles, were they picking at you, messing with you for going in shoreside?
Of course, there's always sort of like a lighthearted side to that, making the jump to corporate, you know. That's like the go-to nickname nowadays is Captain Corporate. I can get it from everybody.
Yeah,
Even guys I've never worked with, like personally, just the guys in training. The new nickname is Captain Corporate,
I
but
like it.
it's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay. I asked for it, so I accept it.
What was it like getting off the boats, getting back to a very different schedule? I know we can talk about it now actually, but the differences in work schedules over the years on the boats, 7 and 7, 14, 14, 21, 21, all that stuff you did to all of a sudden what you're doing now,
Right.
which is similar but different.
Similar but different. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. So initially starting on the boats way back in 91, traditional 7-day schedule for most ship assist tugs, I guess. As far as I know, most places they do a 7-day schedule. And when we were speaking earlier on the phone briefly about this, it's the 7-day schedule. when you're young and going at it, it's what it is. And look, there's guys who've done this for, gosh, I don't know, 30, 40 years still out there doing it. And they've always had a 7 day schedule. The normal crew change for us on the river, I guess, was Wednesday. So if we got on the boats 8 or 9 o'clock on the morning of Wednesday, um, we would leave the house a couple hours before that, pack up your gear, load the car, drive to the office. One time we were shopping our own groceries and grub, so we take an hour or two to do that even earlier, and then pump all that to the crew van and drive out to the boat. And we try to have common courtesy, which is if crew changes 9 o'clock, we have to change our oncoming schedule to relieve the guys at 9, right? So some days we're leaving the house at 3 in the morning to wrap all that stuff up and still drive to the boat. And if we're lucky and the boat's nearby, we can leave the house at 7 o'clock and still get it done. And then conversely, on the other end of the week, you know, there's always like an unspoken rule on Tuesday nights. Don't ever ask what dispatch is called about last because it's like jinxing the night. You're gonna screw it up for everybody. If you say, do we have anything looking up when you start your watch on Tuesday night, you're gonna jinx everybody. We'll end up with like a noon crew change. It's the nature of it. This mystic cosmic energy that always got you on a Tuesday night. Uh, yeah, so you end up in Baton Rouge or just way south of New Orleans. Even if you got off the boat at 9, it's still a 2 or 3 hour drive, traffic and everything else midday. So you might not get home till 2 or 3 in the afternoon. And on a 7 day stretch, they didn't really have 7 days off. And then you get home and you've got the normal stuff to do around the house, attending kids and PTO meetings and ball practice and appointments with the banks and doctors and everything else. And so functionally, you kind of end up with only like 2 work days, Thursday and Monday usually, to get things done. And then your weekend around the house. And then Tuesday, you kind of hustle to wrap everything up and get ready to go back on Wednesday morning. So it was like I said, younger guys getting into it. When I got into it in 91, it wasn't that big of a deal. You get a little further along in your career, married, kids, more than one kid, that chopping the time off at each end, how long it takes to get home, and how soon you have to wrap everything up at home to go back to work on Wednesday. It's sort of it's like a mental exercise. And I've always been, my mindset was always Wednesday to go to work was a different me than the Wednesday that I knew I was coming home. Thankfully, I didn't have kids that far back in my career. We had kids kind of late. Um, I say that, man. I know that might have been the coolest thing for us to do was have kids that young. I don't know, but I've seen guys come to work and like their kids are crying Wednesday morning when they're trying to leave the house, and it wears you out. It wears you down a little bit.
Like I
Like I
said, man,
said,
I've
man, I've
seen
seen
guys
guys
that
that
have
have
been
been
out
out
there
there
closing
closing
in
in
on
on
50
50
years
years
this
this
way,
way,
and
and
they've
they've
always
always
had
had
that
that
7 day
7 day
schedule.
schedule.
Well, I just spent a night on a towboat this week, and it was a crew change that morning, so I got to see that bankside. It was pretty cool. Um, but they were both saying how the youngest of the kids is like a countdown.
They don't
So
understand.
7 days till you leave again. How many days? And then,
That Tuesday they shut down.
phew,
Yeah,
yeah,
it's a very common story.
it was both of them saying the same thing. But did yours have issue? How did that go over the years?
We had Olivia. I say we. My wife had Olivia in '04. So I was probably already 15, almost 14 years into it. Like when Amy and I started dating, I was already into this job. It's the only job I've ever had, and it's the only way our relationship has ever worked. If For a very short time, I was home Monday through Friday, the same time as her, and it was probably the worst 3 or 4 years we had as a couple,
Occupying the
occupying the
same
same
space
space
at
at
the
the
same
same
time.
time.
Oh
Neither one
shit.
of us are ready for it.
Yeah.
We're used to it. So
Huh.
it was, but Olivia was very young. Of course, she didn't understand what it was. And when she got old enough to understand it, she never questioned it. She never asked where I was going. She just knew I was going to be home next week. Um, I used to just sneak in the room and give her a little peck on the forehead and tell her daddy's leaving. She's like, okay. She'd just roll over and go back to sleep. Like she, looking back at it now, this is going to deviate for a second. We're going to take a little tangent. Looking at it now, she's just turned 21 in September. She's up in college, up there by his with her friends. But she's not with us anymore. And she was probably one of the most independent people I've ever met, good or bad.
And I
And I
know it's
know it's
because
because
I
I
was
was
gone
gone
for
for
half
half
of
of
her
her
life.
life.
Right.
Her and her mom figured out how to do things together. Amy did a great job keeping her occupied. She was in a dance studio, sort of travel dance, competitive dance team, studio dance team, sort of like that Dance Moms bullshit TV show. But she fell into it. She loved it. She stuck with it like 14 years, I think. 13 or 14 years she was with it. And that kept him busy throughout the year. It was always prep time, or it's travel time, or it's competition time, or it's costumes and backdrops. And there was always something for them to do. So they stayed busy. Olivia stayed occupied with that. But looking at her now as a young adult, man, she's just like, she's one of the coolest people I've ever met in my life. She means everything to me, but she is fiercely independent for somebody her age. I know that's where it came from, was growing up in the house with, I'm always there on the phone, right? You can always call them. Like, there's so many guys I know have like the same daily routine. 8 o'clock, they FaceTime the kids so they can go hop in the tub and go to bed. And I've never did that with Olivia and Amy. When Amy and I first started dating, when I was doing this, you'd have to go find a payphone on a dock and like plan a call. He may call the office on the radio. He's like, "Can you do me a favor and call my mother-in-law's place and let them know I'll be at the dock in like 2 hours, and I'll call Amy." And it'll be like 10 o'clock at night from Baton Rouge, some random payphone using her dad's AT&T calling card, like charging these long distance calls just to talk to her for a few minutes. And then when cell phones came around, it was so expensive to use them all the time that our standing rule was, if it's not an emergency, try not to use it. But you give somebody young in a relationship an opportunity to decide what an emergency is, they use the phone a lot, right? So it was fine. It's good. Guys coming in the industry now in the last 10 years, the freedom that these new smartphones give everybody, it's a lot different. It's a lot different. That helps us with family and their communications in the circles and stuff like that. It doesn't remove the fact that you're not home, but it does help. You know, I remember we had a phone call one night. We were I think we're in Burnside. So I was on the phone as a local call. So it's only like the dollar to hook up on the phone card or whatever it was. And she's telling me about something with her friends and work. And so, you know what? So I'll be home in 2 days. Let's save that for dinner. And that became our tradition. So when I got home Wednesdays, we'd sit down and cook dinner. We lived in Baton Rouge at the time. And Amy had just finished surge tech school. So she had like her first full time, really successful job going. So she'd always have these great stories about surgery, which are pretty gross stories, but she loves talking about it.
Yeah.
And so that was it. That was our new rule. Wait till we get home. Wait till we're sitting face to face. I'd rather hear all this in person than just over the phone because we've got 10 minutes. You know? And that's how we lived it. That's how we did it. So when Olivia came around, just out of, I guess, our choice to do that, right? Um, I'd go in Miami, I worked a 21-day schedule. I'd speak to Amy once a week, and it was me calling them to make sure Olivia was ready for school Monday. It was just a quick call Sunday afternoon, just to make sure everything was still normal. And that still didn't take more than 10 minutes, you know. But yeah, it's a thing, man. Being away from the family is it's some guys handle it really well. Some guys have like real structured formative stuff at home. And I've seen young guys that'll go through like relationship issues, like lack of trust on both ends. You know, the girlfriends back home think they're not on a boat. They're tied off getting into somebody else's business somewhere or whatever. And then these guys, the notorious Jody, right? That's like
The
the
missing
missing
man
man
in
in
every
every
boat.
boat,
He exists out there too.
everywhere. If it floats, Jody's got something going on. From crew boats and survey boats all the way up to, this 10,500s pushing 80 barges. Jody's lurking somewhere. It's such a shitty thing. But
Well, you mentioned earlier that you preferred 21-21, but the money was better at 14 and 14.
personal budgeting was better. That's what that meant.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. 21-day schedule was extensive for a harbor tug. And guys will go out and they'll do weeks of extra time, 4, 5, 6 weeks. The longest I ever stayed was 9. I've done 9-week stretches. But a normal schedule, a 3-week schedule's pretty far out there for a harbor tug company. The 21 days off was amazing compared to sevens, which is what I did. I went from 7 and 7 in New Orleans to 21 and 21 in Miami. And part of that was logistics. The company was paying transport for crew change. So if they can do it once a month versus 4 times a month or 2 times a month, that's what they preferred. Getting that far down there away from home, it was kind of nice to settle into a routine with my crew, with the office, with the pilots. It was good. I think a 7-day rotation would have been a lot to try to keep up with. And then 21 days off was the craziest thing. We can plan like actual out of state vacations. We don't have to worry about finding somebody to cover. I'm not going to be on a Wednesday, but I can be there Saturday. So I need somebody to stay 3.5 days. Like all that goes away. And you can actually plan. I guess you get to like that quality versus quantity thing with the 21-day schedule. And then the money stuff, 21 days off the boat is a lot of time, a lot of free time to shop. And that's all it comes down to. You support your hobbies at an excessive level because you've got more time to loiter on the laptop. So 14 days is pretty good medium.
Gotcha. Fine. Let's hear about the new gig. So this idea comes out, you start your LLC. How does that, I guess I'm not sure what you can discuss. So this might get kind of cut or chopped up. I don't know how much you want to give away the hiring process. If any
So
of
the,
that.
the process, actually, there's not much. I don't think you'll be able to keep most of it, I think. Yeah. So I was already doing this off-site training with Moran. So we utilize campuses, Siemens Church Training Center in Houston, uh, U.S. Maritime Resource Center, which is right outside of Newport, Rhode Island, and another school called My Tags. I think it's the Maritime Institute of General Studies and Sciences, Maritime Institute of Training. I can't remember. Anyway, acronym is My Tags, right? And that's in Baltimore. And all three locations have uh, bridge simulators. So Houston, Siemens Church, SEI Houston, and USMRC in Rhode Island, we do hands-on simulator training for tug operators. In Baltimore, we do a nav skill assessment, which is an interaction with rules of the road and voyage planning. And we do a breakout session for the guys. One of them, they'll do sleep fatigue and medication. So they learn like rest, sleep and work rest hour management and laws and policies regulating prescription medications and stuff like that. It's actually a very informative class. And then in the second evolution of that, we do core leadership, which is like a 2.5 hour breakout group for half the class. But the core of this curriculum in Baltimore, we'll start with that one. There's a recognized program called NSAP, Navigational Skill Assessment Program. It was put together in Seattle, I think, originally, at a campus over there. And a lot of big companies use this NSAP as well, it's an assessment and a vetting tool to see somebody's skill set with their understanding of the rules of the road, navigational rules of the road. And then in the simulation, we put them underway in the simulation, and we'll have, say, a crossing situation, an overtaking situation, low visibility, recognizing lights and shapes. And we do all that in a simulator too. And when they're finished with the simulated run, usually lasts about 40 minutes. We do a post-assessment debrief, like right away with the attendee, the student. I participated as a student 2013, I think. And coming from the Mississippi River, the company we're working for originally, shit, it might have been 2010. But anyway, the company we're working for originally was a very small family-owned business. All the tugs ran under inland rules, all the documentation, all that kind of stuff. My first license was operator uninspected towing vessel, and it got grandfathered over to master towing. And then shortly after that happened, they came with the towing vessel inspections. And now it's turned into subchapter M and sire and everything else. Um, but when we learned our job back in the 90s, the first test I took for the Coast Guard for my first license was at a prep place. I don't want to throw any names out, but it's at a preparatory place, right? So they don't teach you the rules to avoid collision at sea. They get you to memorize the answers to the Coast Guard exam. So we're all in there pecking keyboards till we're scoring, 90s, 95s on these practice tests. Like, oh man, you're good to go. We'll call the Coast Guard and see if you can get in. Like, now's the time. So they used to hustle us across town. And when I took my first test, the Coast Guard we were at the Tidewater building on Poydras Street, and the school was on like floor 21, and the Coast Guard office is on floor 22. So you practice in the morning and you go up one floor and take your test. So here we go. 2010 or 2011, we go in there to take this NSAP, this skill assessment. And I thought I did a great job. And we get to the debrief, and it was an eye-opening experience for me. I thought I was doing a great job at work. I thought I was safe. I was, but I had no idea how far outside the actual rules of navigation I was operating in certain situations and times we were out there. And the thought process, the decision-making processes through the assessment, we had to explain ourselves. And the staff at my tags are like retired ship captains that have been all over the world making command decisions 24/7, and they live and breathe these international combined rules, and they could not understand the processes we were like digesting as harbor tug captains. Like, oh no, there's plenty of room. I'm just going to go that way. Well, the rule says you can't cut across somebody's bow without letting them know. And so we're out there just looking like jackasses pretty much to these like high level pros. And after the debrief was done, man, it didn't scare me, but it was frightful to think about. Like, man, what if something did ever happen or if it ever goes wrong? And they explained that to us in the class afterwards. We do a rules of road refresher. And there's this thing called the Pennsylvania rule that a lot of captains will hear about. Hopefully, they'll know what this is when they hear it. It was a court case. A steamship called the Pennsylvania was involved in a collision. It was the first time the courts decided that no one vessel is strictly at fault. If there's two things out there on the water, one thing could have done something different to avoid the extent of the collision, to reduce the extent of the collision or whatever. So they assign a percentage of fault from that case moving forward. And I had never heard of that before. And of all the things I've ever done as a trainee, NSAP stuck with me forever. And about a year and a half after I participated, the two company instructors that were there, they weren't going to be able to make it to Baltimore. And one of the guys reached out and asked if I wanted to come back and learn how to do the assessing, since I was like one of the, I don't say the few because we all learned a lot. One of the few that took it to heart, maybe I shouldn't say that either. But if anybody had the most to learn from that kind of experience, it was all of us down on the Gulf Coast and the inland. We just ingrained on the inland rules, and I think it was eye opening for all of us. But that was the first opportunity I had to go help out as a trainer, as an assessor. And I had done that from about 2013 all the way through to March of this year, off and on. And almost 3 years ago, one of my coworkers from Miami, her name is Hollister. She had left Moran for a while, went home, got married, and very shortly decided to go home, find something closer to home. And she had started her family. And about 3 years ago, a position opened up. A new position was created at Moran to help the guy that was in charge of training. Sort of like initially it was going to be administrative assistant, but it turned into something totally different really quick. And we spoke on the phone. She called and asked if she thought she should apply. I told her she'd be perfect for it. And she got the job. And very shortly, in the same time period, last 3 years or so, I was in Lake Charles working a 14-day schedule. We're coming through the COVID scheduling. We had the ice storms and the hurricanes, and the work we were doing in Lake Charles, it's for an LNG facility. So we'll escort the ships up the Calcasieu Channel, they'll go to berth, and if there's a vessel in the berth, the tugs have to stay. And we went from probably 40, 45 ships. First year I was there in 2019, and we might not even done 40. 2024, I think we were at like 120. The newest schedule to wrap up this year, I think they just hit like 155. So they're doing like an LNG carrier every 20 hours. And it got to the point where we were staying at the terminal more than we were anywhere else. And my nature wouldn't jive with it. I don't like being penned up. The opportunity to get off the boat and go handle a training session was like a pressure relief valve to get out of there. And I gave myself a personal deadline. It was December of 24. One way or the other, I was getting off the boat. I didn't like the way it felt to be over there anymore. And it wasn't the management, it wasn't the crew, it wasn't the tugs. It's just where I found myself, I didn't like that spot. So that's where I got the idea to start the business and try to find my way out of there. Well, Hollister and the training supervisor, I ran it past them. Like I wasn't trying to hide it from anybody. I just wanted to get off the boat. And so I reached out to them for some advice about it. And the initial website before it launched, I actually sent it to the company attorney to make sure I wasn't going to be in some kind of violation of anything. And in, I think it was the summertime of 24, we were in Rhode Island doing a training session. And the training supervisor and one of our senior vice presidents drove over while we were there from Connecticut. And they wanted to talk about it. They wanted to make sure I wasn't trying to leave Moran to go teach other guys how to run tugboats because they were concerned a little about, you know, helping somebody else be better at their job, that somebody that doesn't work for Moran be better at what they do. And I understood that concern. I kind of took it as a compliment. And then I told them, like, man, I really want this business to be shaped towards ship pilots more than other tugboat companies. And that helped a lot with the conversation. In December of 24, the training supervisor, he reached out and told me to hold on, that they've got something in play. And as soon as he's able to let me know what it is, he'll do it. And 2 months later, they told me they got the green light to create another training position. And so I got the offer letter in March of this year. And I accepted the position, and April 16th was my last day on a tugboat.
We left off April of 2025,
Yeah.
last time you stepped off a
Yes.
tugboat, excuse me. So tell me now, going from leaving that lifestyle, that schedule into your new role and how it's developed over time.
So I mentioned earlier where I was working, I'd help out with training on my days off. And
Sometimes
sometimes
actually
actually
on
on
schedule,
schedule,
they
they
let
let
me
me
get
get
off
off
the
the
tug
tug
to
to
go
go
help.
help with the training sessions. So the job itself, I was already very familiar with. And in the other part of the training we do, which is the operator training for the Z drive tractor tugs, the company had hired a consultant, a super phenomenal human named Jeff Schlesinger. He's actually got a textbook out. You can get it on Amazon about learning to drive Z drives. He literally wrote the book on it, and Moran brought him as a consultant to revamp the ASD operator training system. So the last 2.5 years, I've had a just phenomenal opportunity to work with him, uh, side by side with him as an instructor, observing his techniques, and um, the opportunity to work with him has helped the company 10 times over what we were doing before. The program now is leaps and bounds above what it used to be. And um, there's another captain from Port Arthur. His name is Jeff as well. He was the key, I think, internally to moving a lot of this forward. He's been with the company for, man, his entire life. I can't remember the number, but he's worked in Port Arthur. He used to work offshore tugboats. He's a very early on adapter of the ASD boats when Moran decided in the late 90s to invest in these things. He There's a very short list of guys they chose to run these things when they were originally going to be posted, which ports they were going to get them and where they were going to work and who was going to be on them. And he was one of the very early ones, one of the ones chosen very early on to get into this Z drive tractor tug stuff. And he had a chance to go out to the West Coast to learn with one of the companies over there, some ride along training with them. And he's been a fundamental figure in every layer of discussion in Moran with tractor tugs, the first generation to second. He was part of the decision-making process, what features should be included on the next set of boats to be built. Um, and he's a senior captain in Port Arthur. He's one of their for onboard training. He's sort of like the last step one of the training mates goes through to get put into a position is the he has a hands-on, eyes-on week with them. He's like the final say-so for them to make progress down there. And I had a chance to work with him for the last 2.5 or 3 years directly as well. And the program that we've ended up putting together has developed, almost evolved on its own. It's much more organic way. I don't know if that's the right word. Yeah, I'll go with it. It's very organic compared to some places you'd go to for training. Most places are very, very structured. There's a day one outline, day two outline, and an assessment is done on, phase one, part one, day one. And we've let this thing develop to a level where early on in the day one training, we'll have a familiarization, sort of a orientation cruise on the equipment. We'll let the guys go run the boats. And the vast separator in the simulators is that they aren't exactly like the boats we work and live on. There's nothing we can really do about that. So we give them anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour to have some time to familiarize themselves with the controls, the differences between the actual boat and this training simulator. And when they're in there running this familiarization, we observe them from a control room. We walk through the rooms while they're training, and we can do a visual assessment of their current skill level. And we use that as the footprint going forward for the rest of the training week. Rhode Island has 3 tug bridges, so we have a group of 6 students, and it'll usually have itself worked out. 2 of the attendees that have a higher skill set will be in one room, and they sort of pair themselves off that way. And it's very good because the guys who need the most instruction, the most structure, have time with us directly. And if there's two that are sort of further along in their skill set, we can give them training scenarios on their own, and we can still make observational, peek in the door, check the control room, and the structure doesn't really run sort of A to Z when we get those classes going. Uh, we feel that the opportunity for we give them an opportunity. We do some classroom stuff. There's some knowledge-based stuff that you have to kind of get your mind behind with these tugboats. So we've done that with some really good high quality PowerPoint and video presentations. And we have a pre-course e-learning component to it that they're sent out to register a week or so before they come to us. And with their answers on the e-learning module, their questions day one or day two in the class, we can formulate what the rest of the week is going to look like almost per student. It's it's pretty unique, I think.
Real
Um,
feel.
the extent of the training we provide as a company is wholly unique, I think, in the industry. Um, Forgot what the initial question was already.
Me too.
Yeah.
Um, moving from boats to shoreside, shifting from that lifestyle, getting into this new thing as it
Yeah.
developed.
Yeah. I think the biggest difference so far, the thing I had to learn is the administrative side. Running the tugboats as captain, we've got administrative duties there. It's just like a different communication chain, obviously. And the type of admin work is sort of like an internal recruiting process to get attendees signed up for these classes. And it's up to the ports, each port's management, their discretion, who comes and goes through training when they feel it's necessary. Um, so we do a lot of legwork, phone calls. I think they call it cold calling in the sales world. We do that sort of pitch ourselves to the port managers to get some guys into training. Um, as far as lifestyles go, the time away from home is almost the same now. It's still 2 or 3 weeks of travel a month, and it's not too bad. It's not too bad. We've got great relationships with these schools that we use. We've got great relationships, personal relationships with the directors of all these campuses. And I don't know, man, I love it. I actually love it. It was, like I said, I was already sort of doing it, half on the boats and half training, and the chance to do it full time, the chance to pass on the knowledge, man. You get to a certain point in anything you do in life, right? You're a musician. You start out, you go take lessons, then you get to be, doing your thing in a band. You might get successful, be a studio musician or whatever. And it comes back around where you just feel it's time in your life to give back. I think that was another big part of it too. I enjoyed doing the opportunity to do it before, but now, as it's like the core of what I do now, I love it. I absolutely love it. I love the chance to meet employees from other ports. I like the opportunity to share knowledge. We go through in the second phase of the ASD tugboat training. We have we used to call it basic and advanced. Now it's going to be ASD 1 and ASD 2. We're going to recoordinate, rename it so it's just similar to like college level courses, right? 1, 2, and 3. So ASD 2, we go over some escort maneuvering, high speed stuff, working the bow of the ship, running backwards, forward of the ships and stuff like that. And a lot of guys we have them come in, it's the first time they have a chance to even attempt it. They see some videos on social media. They, hear stories of other training sessions of, in Cameron and down in Lake Charles, south of Lake Charles. Every job, one tug is a inbound escort tug made up off the stern of the ship, and one tug is always running bow to bow, making up through the stem of the ship. And a lot of places they don't do it, or they do it so rarely, um, it's not as common. And when we have a chance to have somebody from Lake Charles come in and help with training, that we can share that information directly, like how it actually feels, what it actually looks like. You can go through PowerPoints, you can go through diagrams, you can go through books, but when you have somebody tell you exactly what it's about to look like, what it's about what it's going to feel like when you get in there, there's a lot of there's a different level of intrinsic value when it comes from another captain to a captain, right? And that's sort of the core of our entire training setup now. All of it in Moran is that we've built a new training team. Hollister was my mate in Miami. She's now our manager of training for mariners at ship docking. I came off the boats to do this with the training specialist for tractor tugs and ship docking. We hired another guy. His name is Sean. He's an engineer, like Coast Guard licensed engineer, and he's standing up a whole new sort of a redirection of our engineering training for our onboard engineers. For us nerds, it's very exciting that we have an opportunity to do this. We have a company that lets us have this opportunity, that they're investing in their people at every level. And it's awesome. It's the coolest shit ever. Like literally the coolest shit ever. So the lifestyle change, we went from tugboat life, man, it's pretty sedentary. I am a sedentary person, not good. But now travel 2 or 3 weeks a month. The other week, I'm usually at an office and we do our weekly catch-up meetings, our teams and Zooms and email blasts to the ports and all that good stuff. And we've got a couple of meetings we check in with regional vice presidents. We check in with the last set of trainers we worked with. We'll check on their manage to see if how they're doing on their once they got back on board the boat, how it's going. And we're looking to develop some more of that stuff too. We're looking to develop like actual port visits from trainers to go back and see how they're doing on board the boats. We're looking at we do a new hire boot camp as well. And it had gone virtual for a while because of COVID. And we're looking at it now. We think it's going to be it's the virtual side of it's sort of run its course, I think. And we're looking to bring that back to live, like a 2-day boot camp, live on board. I mean, live in person onboard training. And we're going to push that out. Hopefully, we'll be able to utilize our place in our port office in Port Arthur, Savannah, and Jacksonville, maybe Charleston. And we're really looking forward to getting that off the ground. That's going to be early next year. So, still didn't answer the question exactly about the lifestyle change. I don't know if there was a drastic change just because the travel schedule is very, very similar.
Right. No, that's no problem. There's other questions have materialized as we've been sitting here. You did kind of mention it, but I know we spoke about it last time you were over here. I don't know how you can measure it, but do you see substantial value in the training for these mariners coming from a mariner?
The answer is yes. And I agree. I don't know how to put a quantitative measure on it, but we know the information is better. We know that the information is retained differently. Um, if I was going to go, like I said, musicians, right? If I'm going to go take lessons to play guitar, I'm not going to go to a transmission mechanic, right? I'm not going to I want to go to a guitarist to learn how to play guitar. These guys are coming to tugboat operators and learn how to run a tugboat, you know? And we know, again, we've had other like third party guys come through, very knowledgeable people, respected in the industry. It's just different. And it's really the biggest difference is neither one of those guys, it's not like they weren't captains, but we're captains for Moran Towing, teaching guys at Moran Towing. And that's like the thing. That's like the key, the bedrock to it is that this training has become it's not that it's internal, but it's internal, right? It's all Moran, but the quality of the message is just totally different now that we've had a chance to work through a revamping of it and that we actually developed this. Thanks for the segue. We actually developed developing what we call it a mentor, training mentor program. So we have senior captains that have been through, say, both ASD training simulations and through NSAP. We're going to go through and build a roster, a cadre of guys we can call on to help as instructors now, as this gets bigger and as the company gets bigger, and we find more assets, or we get more contracts, or we get more success down the road. I see everything now. Having a chance to do this, to speak with the vice presidents and the general managers to see what issues they have for the employees as far as possible training or need for training. I don't ever see anything. I don't see any problems at Moran. I only see opportunities for us. And it's again, it's the coolest shit in the world. It's the greatest feeling to be part of something as successful as this. And to know that the success is it's it's grassroots, man. It's us. We're doing this for our guys, and our guys are that successful when they go back. But this training mentor thing we're going to put out, we I'm probably more excited about that than I am the onboard live boot camps. The chance to give our captains that know so much a chance to become trainers, to let them go through a train the trainer or leadership workshop to help them be better communicators at every level, whether they're training or they're at home or they're at work. Like this stuff kind of gets rooted in there. It's awesome. Like Maria's found a very unique and successful way to have communication is kind of the key to everything. And the fact that we're going to have this opportunity for other guys to finally have a place to put their knowledge, to get it out, to share it. I'm really excited about that opportunity too.
Well, I've seen in the towboat industry a certain disconnect between boat and office. You and I discussed this a little bit last time you were here. Coming from what you just finished saying, it's a little weird to segue into this question, but what has been your experience in your career where a certain disconnect between office and wheelhouse was noted? And it seems your current efforts might be working to remedy some of that kind of thing.
I can get to the remedy first. What we've started this year with the training sessions, we've invited managers, operations managers, general managers to come in and see which classes, the information we put out, how we put it out. And it's helped. We just did a group last week in Houston, and the general manager for Moran Lake Charles came over for 2 days of observation to see the information we're putting out for advanced ASD, for ASD2, how it looked. We actually had him in the simulator for 2 days with us. So he was surprised at how much information, the quality of information, how much time these guys were getting in the simulator behind the sticks versus in the classroom, looking at PowerPoints and Word documents all day. And he was pleasantly surprised. He was super happy he had a chance to come and see it. It was not what he thought was going on. So every opportunity we get to have anybody from management come in and see it, it's awesome. It's great. And then the other thing that happens too, some of the guys we had there were from Norfolk, Virginia, from golly, Savannah, Georgia, Norfolk, Virginia, um, Baltimore, Maryland. Maybe that was it. And like I said, he's the general manager of Lake Charles, Louisiana, right? So there's no perceived notion of like observation from their direct management. So they were much more comfortable and they spoke to this guy like he was one of them. He asked questions that he would obviously want to know answers to, and these guys were comfortable enough to give him answers. And it's awesome. It was great. Um, we don't really do in the first training session for ASD tugs, there is an assessment. There's a score component to it. And the way that's structured is Moran has a pretty thorough system for training and training records for employees, for especially for the tugboat side. And if we're going to put somebody in the wheelhouse on a tractor tug, the simulation class that we do is a core component for them to continue onboard training. They have to come and attend this ASD simulation. ASD2, the advanced simulation, it's not required for anybody, and there's no scoring assessment to it. It's just sort of a knowledge transfer. Just these guys get to talk about what they want to speak about. They ask questions about what they want to ask about. We show them the their more of their potential as an operator and the capabilities of these tugs. And um, the the fact that we have it open to managers, I think, is again, it's pretty unique and it's an opportunity for everybody to learn something. If there's a manager that's sort of from a business school, right? He might not be into the maritime side at all. It could be his first time to literally put his hands on a set of controls for a tractor tug, and it's good. I think it's one way we can remedy the situation if there is a situation of this disconnect between management and tug, shoreside and boat side. That's one of the tools we have now that we can do that we can utilize and have them come out and at least observe it, at least see what we're giving out as far as training goes. The company sponsors internally these things called visible leadership visits. They ask the managers, operations, and general managers to go out and see their boats, and they there's a lot of good stuff that comes out from the leadership visits because it's sort of like they don't come out with a notepad and a list of complaints. It's like, hey man, how's everything going this week? Just have a fresh pot of coffee and sit down and talk for a few minutes. And it gives the captains and the mates a chance to talk to the ops guys. And it just brings it down to a communal level, sort of the breaking bread sort of nature to it. That's a good tool that Moran utilizes too, to sort of bridge that gap. And a lot of companies will perform a survey, sort of I forgot what it's called exactly, the exact title. Some of them, I think, call it like a culture survey, maybe. And there'll be some generalized questions, but you can create like a data cloud and you see the trends and the answers, whether it's across the company or very specific to one location. And those things always showed this gap of perception. Like they'll ask management, how do you feel about this X component or this component? And they'll ask the captains the exact same two questions. And then the follow-up question is, do you get enough information assistance or coordination from your direct manager? And there's always a dip. Like all of them think they're doing the greatest thing, and then there's where it has the tires rubber has to meet the road. There's a disconnect between the captains and their first level of management. And we saw those the first time years ago, and we've put in place the live training sessions, the leadership visits. We've got a very super cool guy. I'm going to throw his name out. His name is Dave. He's one of our safety directors. We're like the whole corporate side. He was very um, key in putting together the NSAP program, the training program we talked about first. And his I think his greatest thing he's done with us, he's helped realign Moran's safety management system years ago, and he went out and vetted a couple of different programs, and he saw something he really liked, and he pitched it, sold it, got it done. And Moran's going to what they call behavioral based safety, BBS. And it's probably a few companies you guys are going to be familiar with or hear this, be familiar with it. And the first time we heard this, we were thinking like behavioral adjustment, and it is, but I was kind of laid it down, like minimized it to like child psychology. You pat somebody on the back when they do a good job. Yay. That is part of it. But the underlying tool that uses is communication. And this behavioral based safety has created an opportunity for us to have probably the most efficient communication chain I've ever seen. Um, a day one new hire, deckhand, that has never been on a boat in his life, 18-year-olds out of high school coming in, the first lesson they get is that they have stop work authority. Day one, before they have dental insurance, they can stop a tugboat in its tracks, right? And it's a lot of companies have this policy, but we initiated literally the first conversation they have is how our safety management system works, how vital they are to our success, and where they belong and where they fit in this process moving forward. And this whole system that Dave Olson had put together has given us a whole new culture of open communication, and that has pressed itself out over the last 12 or 15 years or so into a place where I don't know if there's anything we're uncomfortable that any topic that we can bring up that won't be uncomfortable, that would be uncomfortable in any other conversation anywhere else. Some of our operations guys expect it. They expect it to be, you know, ripping the band-aid off, let's get this over with. But it's always at a constructive, informative level. We do have, you know, emotional responses and little puffs of anger and shit to talk about or whatever. But if it's operational, our captains can call our managers now and say, this doesn't work and this is why. We can come to a solution or conclusion together, or I can figure it out, let you know how we get past it. And I won't say there's not a wrong answer in this because you never know, right? You can never say never. But most of the time, the captains are given the leeway, enough freedom to make the corrective process on board and just let the guys know, like, it was an issue yesterday, we're good. Or the best thing we can do for our managers is call them and tell them, we had a problem this morning, but we figured it out. This is where we are now. Don't worry about it. And then again, I think it's awesome that the company that we work for is letting us put these things in place and put it out to all the employees as training sessions. We've got this gigantic e-learning component internal, the Moran Center for Learning, MCL. It's tons and tons and tons of safety training. And yeah, I think all this is, I know this is kind of long-winded, but all this is, these things are components that tie to, oh man, these are all components that are tied together that let us reduce that gap between shore side and boat side.
Well, I'm very happy to hear that those measures are taken and you're seeing improvements from the efforts. But I wanted to close on a couple of stories that you shared last time you were over here. There was a gentleman you worked with, I think you were a deckhand down in the Myrtle Grove area or south in the head of pass or something.
Mhm.
Um, there was a guy that was an exceptional boat handler. I think you were in the wheelhouse with him one evening.
Yeah, that was a year I spent over at another tugboat company. Captain named Todd. I don't know if I can put his full name out. We were on an older twin screw tugboat, and his specialty, he came from a company, offshore company. They were in a way to be, I don't know, shut down, dissolved, whatever it was, and this other New Orleans tug company bought their boats. And with the acquisition of the tugs, they weren't going to have enough mariners in hand, so they asked a few of the captains to come with the boats, and I ended up with them for about 4 or 5 months, I guess. And his background was offshore, towing on a hawser, everything off the stern of the tug, and the opportunity to stand in the wheelhouse and watch him run that boat, hawser lines off the stern, two-line makeup off the bow of the ships, and then some three-line hipped up towing work on three lines. The company I was at before, I probably would have never had the opportunity to see those things. And it was great. It was awesome. It was a chance to learn, just to watch one of the best guys I've ever seen run a boat, to do that kind of work. And his his ability to run the tug was awesome. His skill at hawser work was awesome. The most impressive thing about Captain Todd was how relaxed he was and how easy he made it look. And hanging out with him in the wheelhouse and talking to him during the jobs and after the jobs, that was like the initial takeaway was, if you know your job, you 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 don't have to be in a panic, right? Like, I'm not explaining this the right way, but to be so good at what you do that you don't have to worry about the ancillary, the gray area, the fuzzy stuff, because you're in such complete control of the major things that you eliminate a ton of those just by making the first decision the right way. And that was second only to Captain Wayne, one of the first guys I ever started with when I was a deckhand. Um, those two gentlemen on boats, two of the best boat handlers ever, in two totally different styles. Captain Wayne came up on the old tugs in Baton Rouge, single screw, just hammering these things to death, getting the work done, never tell a pilot no kind of attitude. And then Todd's out there with this three-line finesse and just barely touching the tug and making it do just amazing things. And I was very lucky to have both of them in my life when I was young, to see them both do what they were doing. And um, just, you see somebody, either one of those guys, you have a chance to work with them for so long, and then I get a chance to be a captain down the road. And the first time we're out in shutout fog or escorting the ship out to Southwest Pass, and the pilot's like, "Hey man, we're having an issue. Can you come and get us?" And just that whole, everything slows down, life flashes before your eyes, whatever, and you just flip right back to June of '97 on three lines with Todd down at, whatever we're doing, Braithwaite or whatever it was. And it's like, oh yeah, man, I got you. Don't worry about it. I'm coming. And you just go right back to this like, it's like JV football playbook, you know. You get to watch the big kids play for a couple of years and you take it all in, right? It's like finally my chance to go play quarterback, and this is it. And it's only because I got to see guys like Todd and Wayne do what they did. And they were great instructors. They were good teachers. They were good communicators. And that's another lesson, I guess, to just go off tangent again one more time. Communication is everything. That's what I maybe should have been the first answer for the first question. What have I learned since I've been shoreside? Communication is everything. You can direct a crowd, right? You can stop an argument. You can get a better deal for a car. Like whatever you're doing, man. If you're a good communicator and you understand what people take in when they hear you speak, and more importantly, listen to them when they speak. And I mean, honestly, listen. Don't just hear them talking, but honestly listen to what they're saying. It's game changing for whatever you're doing in life. Communication is everything. And those two gentlemen were great communicators in their own way, unique own ways, but they did pass on the information in a relative way that I retain to this day. I've had the chance to teach, I don't know how many guys come up through the wheelhouse, how many people make it through from, training positions to mate to relief captain to captain. And it's always been like this easy conversation. Uh, One of the only few rules I ever had, I don't even call it a rule, just the way I operate, my mode of operation when I was still in the boats training folks. I always told them there's no such thing as a stupid question, right? Talk to me while you're running the boat. Ask me while we're doing this. If you want to know, just talk to me. And I've never been one to like shy away from conversation. Obviously, we talk all the time. And that's, I've seen the people that I've trained use the same methods that I demonstrated, showed them. Just give somebody a few minutes, man, to just talk. And it's a whole nother thing, right? Like, I know you wanted to ask about this, I think probably next or second to soon. Um, but as important as Captain Wayne and Todd were as captains and operators and show me how to run a boat, I think the single most formative event in my life on tugs, early on when I was a captain, very early on in my time as captain, I got a call from the boss, and he tells me that next week when you come back to work, we're going to give you John. And John was a deckhand, had been with a few other captains on a few other boats. And the conversation I got from my boss was, John's coming with you next week when you come back to work. If he doesn't make it with you, it's his last shot. He's out of here. That was the first time I had that conversation with any of my supervisors. And we were on the way home for a week off. So for like 5 or 6 nights, I'm like, Jesus, what did this guy do? Like, what do I have to do when I go back to work? Is it going to be a night fight in the parking lot? Is it going to be like, what I mean? Like I had no idea what John had done wherever he was before. So it kind of looped me up really bad in the head, and came to work the next week. Usual stuff, go to the store, buy all the groceries, come to the office and reload it and pack it up and put it back in the crew van and find out where the boat is. We go take a ride, and John was there to help first thing. Hey, good morning, Cap. I heard we're gonna be working together. So, yeah, that's cool, man. Good to meet you. You know, everything we wanted to get done that morning, he was doing it. No problem. We got to the boat. We were a little busy on Wednesday, like normal. We stowed all the groceries and put all the supplies away, got the orders for our first job, went out and did our first job, and we were on an older single screw tug back then. And we ran normally a three-man crew. So we had a captain, an engineer, and a deckhand. And so we ran the boat that day. We finally got tied up, I don't know, 7 or 8 o'clock that night. And I had gone straight to bed pretty much. And I got up the next morning, I went down to the galley, and John was up, that evening at night on watch, and had cleaned the galley, did a great job, did a good job. And I'm looking around and can't find the coffee pot, and thought that was a little weird. So I look around and see the toaster's not around either. All right. Open up a couple of cabinet doors. I find them both and then put them back out and make a pot of coffee. And didn't think much of it. I thought maybe he just moved it out of the way so he'd have more room to work or something. We went through the whole day Thursday and didn't think much about it afterwards that, initially. And the next day we ran all night again and get up the next day and same thing. Galley is spotless. The toaster is stowed away in a different place. The coffee pot is stowed away in a different place. I look over the galley table and all the newspapers and magazines and TV guides are all squared away in this little pyramid from biggest to smallest, tucked straight up on the edge of the table to the corner. And we had a box, an empty cardboard box full of paperback books. Everybody swapped books like a little library, whatever. He'd stood these books up on end so you can see the name of every book, and he stacked them in alphabetical order inside this box. I'm like, what in the hell, man? And he comes through the galley doors like, John, man, I need to talk to you for a minute. And he took a seat, and I'm like, man, I need to know what's going on with this coffee pot and this toaster. It's like, oh, well, Cap, the socket for the toaster is right by the sink. That's not a safe place to plug in the toaster. So, all right, I'll not mad. I'll go with that one. So, but what about the coffee pot? He's like, it was in the way. I didn't like where it was sitting. So is that why the magazines are stacked up? And he goes, yeah, there was just too much shit going on. I just didn't like it. I had to like square the stuff away. It's like, all right, man. So tell me about the last boat, man. Why did the other captain want you off the tug? It's like, oh, we got in a fight in the wheelhouse. It's like, oh, really? He's like, yeah. Said he, I don't ask for a whole lot out here. And he said something I didn't like. He called me a name I didn't want to be called, and I asked him to stop speaking to me that way. And I told him, like, I don't want to do this, man, but if you talk to me that way again, if you're not going to respect me, I'm not going to respect you. And the next day he did it again. So I went up to the wheelhouse. I told him, stop what you're doing. We're about to figure this out. And he called the boss and told me to get off the boat instead. Like, all right. So now we know we're not going to talk to each other that way. Good. So tell me about this, man. What about the magazines and the box of books and keeping the countertops clear? I just need to understand how we're working together. Let me know what's going on. You got real quiet and he like this really apprehensive look on his face. And he just shook his head and he's like, I don't know if I want to talk about it. It's like, and it's like, so I'm not here to dig in your business, man. I just want to know how are we going to work together? This is all I really want to know about. So he told me this story when he was younger in high school. He had sort of come from a broken home, and his mother was on like her second or third marriage, and they had a younger half sister in the family, and they were on a school bus home from. He was, I think he said a sophomore in high school when it happened. But the school buses ran the same route, and the bus in front of him was the bus his sister usually rode. And they get off the interstate, off the highway to the neighborhoods, and they're coming around. They see smoke over a tree line, and him and his brother look at each other like, "Man, that's our neighborhood." They get to the next stop sign. It's like, "Man, that's our street." They made the corner, and they looked down, and it was their house. Their house was on fire. So as soon as the bus stopped, they both bailed off and ran as fast as they could to the house. And he got quiet. I didn't know what was coming next. And he said his little sister was in the house and couldn't get out because his new stepdad was a hoarder, and his mom let him have that behavior and keep that behavior. And that he saw as the reason. It changed everything about him. So he had to square everything away. He had to make sure the doors were clear and the walkways were open. And it was such a detrimental experience for him that he never wanted to see anybody get hurt ever. So, man, it was just like jaw dropping, right? You wouldn't, the last thing you would expect to hear. And I'm talking about like, why do you keep putting my coffee pot in the cupboard? And this is why. So, of course, I told him I was sorry to hear about his sister, but now I know why you're doing what you're doing. We're going to be fine. And I picked up the boat phone. I called the port engineer and the manager. I said, "Hey, man, so we're going to be pulling into the dock tomorrow. Go to the store and buy one of every cleaning product you can get your hands on." So I got it. I figured him out. It's like he's not going anywhere. Like he doesn't have to worry about getting fired, and he doesn't have to worry about going to another boat. Um, just bring us all the stuff you can find to clean with. And the next day, the port engineer walked through the galley door with a box full of stuff from the hardware store. And John was on the stern of the tug. And I walked back there and said, "Hey, man, I got something for you in the galley. I need you to come inside for a second." And he walked in, and I pointed to the galley table. So, "Man, that box is for you." And he opened up, took the lid off the box. And he looked in there and he saw the stuff, and like almost any deckhand in the world would be like, "Ah, shit, more stuff to clean." But this dude looks at it and he goes, "This is mine." It's like, "Yeah." It's like, "All this is mine." It's like, "Yeah, man, this is your stuff." He's like, "Oh yeah." And he put the lid back on it and took it to his room to make sure nobody else can get to it. And he and I finished that year with the cleanest boat in the fleet, best paint job. Just what that taught me, again, back to the communication thing. If, especially where we work, you're away from home, you live half your life on this piece of equipment underway, and you're kind of pinned in with whoever's on that boat with you. So you can take the opportunity to know them and understand them, which is what I suggest, because it changed that experience with John, him telling me that story about his sister. It was, uh, now that I can see who he was and why he was who he was, it was like a whole nother level of understanding and relationships and team building, any label you want to put on it. But if I would have walked through the galley door the second day and said, "Hey, shithead, quit hiding my coffee pot," and whatever that is, quit doing it. Like he would have never changed. I would have never changed. Just to sit down and give him those 2 or 3 minutes, like just set me out on a totally different trajectory when how I run my boat, how I talk to my crew, how to get the best out of them. It was everything. That day was literally everything.
Right back to what you were saying, communication kind of trumps everything.
All of it.
There's an elder barge logistics guy on a team that I used to be on that I'm still well in tune with. There was always the three C's: communication, communication, communication. I've taken that to heart, and whenever I've had opportunity to connect with the mariner out there that's doing this for us, we say, send these 6 here, send these 30 there. The guys that are doing it want to be in the know. So I've made efforts personally to make sure that everybody's good with a plan before it's put in place.
Yeah.
But that captures everything I intended and probably more. So I think we can call this
Probably
one,
more.
and we'll probably do this again. I've enjoyed this.
Yeah, this has been good. I'm glad we had a chance to experiment with the galley table.
We'll see how the audio works. But again, I thank you.
Yeah, man. Awesome. Thank you.
This has been a production of Where You At Studios, LLC.